Hey guys, it's Mel here. Welcome to the Wright Magic speed painting video. As you can see, I'm speed painting Ariel and Mulan on this Dooney and Bourke tote. So firstly, as you can see, I've already done the background scene for this section of the bag, and I've already outlined the characters that I wanted, which is Ariel and Mulan. So I'm just going over the characters right now with my primer paint, which is just the white flat paint from Angelus Direct, and also the fabric medium that they have as well. So yeah, so we can just go ahead and yeah. All right, and right now I'm going over the white painted part that I've gone through with lines, and I like to start with the paint of the painting the face of the characters. I like to put around probably one or two, depending on the surface of my painting material. If it's leather, as you can see, it's harder for the paint to actually be absorbed because of the layers of the medium that I've used already, and also the actual leather itself. So this is, I think, my second coat of the flesh tone that I've pre-mixed myself. All right, so I'm just going over that, and then I think that's the third coat. And I like to use hair dryer just to speed things up. And right now I'm just using a lighter version of the skin tone for the highlights, and going over it also with a darker tone as well for the shading, and a pink mixture of the paint along with the flesh tone to go with the cheeks. And yeah, and as you can see, Ariel is my favorite character to paint, so I just love it every time I'm painting her. So yeah, so I'm continuing on with my highlights and also doing the shadows as well. There we go, doing the shadows. And you always have to make sure that you know exactly where you want the light to hit the character, and where the shadow should be. And you know what, I know there are a lot of us who does customizing, just look at photos on YouTube or Google, and yeah, it's just easy. But if you want to go more in depth into character design, then you can add your shadows and highlights wherever you want, and also add a bit of blush as well, because sometimes even with Mulan, some of the artworks that I've seen, or drawings that I've seen of Mulan, she doesn't really have the blush of the cheeks, so I decided to do one for her. All right, and so okay, so a lot of people ask about my brushes. I love to use Princeton brushes, and the smaller brush that you can get from Princeton, it really depends on the artist, but I love to use the smallest one that I could find. But they are on the pretty high-end price with Princeton brushes, so you have to be really careful and know how to take care of your brushes as well. And yep, so I'm doing the lips now with Mulan, and I just used a hot pink and tamed it down with a bit of the flesh color on her lips. But with Ariel, I used, I think, magenta on her lips, and doing the eyebrows as well. As you can see, I love to use the same brush throughout my painting, especially for details, because this brush is so small. But if I want it to be a lot finer, I actually like to trim the brushes as well. But for this one, I didn't need to trim it. As you can see, the scale reference in comparison to to my thumbnail right at the bottom, and also the character's face, which means that the characters' faces are actually really small. So a small brush like the Princeton's smallest brush, like the detail brushes, are really the best that you can get your hands on. And then I just love doing Ariel's hair, as you can see. I just love it. Okay, and I try to do you know, like the same colored, the same shades of reds, highlights, and you know, like darkening and shading her hair that I've always, you know, that I always use from. If you look at my Instagram, it's always consistent. And I've already pre-mixed like the highlight paint, like the highlight reds that I use for Ariel. And then now we're focusing on Mulan. As you can see, like I'm going back and forth, back and forth. I do that. The reason why I do that is because it's time management as well. It's better for me to do, you know, like to do all backgrounds in a row for all of my stuff, especially if I'm doing like ready to ship items. I like to do each pieces all backgrounds first, and then I continue on, you know, with the characters. But I like to do like, you know, the background and then the characters. That's just the way I do it. And as you can see, that's the highlight that I'm talking about Ariel's hair, and that's actually a pre-mixed paint that I've created myself, and I have a bottle of that. I'll show you guys if you're interested what it looks like in the bottle. And then that's also a pre-mixed dark red. It's almost kind of like a dark maroon that I'm using for the shadows on her hair. It gives it more of like the depth appearance to it, like a bit of a dimension. And as you can see, I've made a few mistakes while painting, and I use a wet cotton bud or Q-tips on the mistakes. As long as the paint is still wet, you can erase it. If not, if the paint has already dried and you notice the mistake, then you can just go over it with the same shade of paint that you've used on the area. And then we're doing the shells now in her bra, and I love doing that one as well. And once again, use hairdryer. It's a lot of people either use hairdryer or the I think it's like, what's it called, the heat gun. I've actually used a heat gun like a year ago, but I didn't like it. It burnt one of the shoes that I made for myself, so I had to stop it, and I just went back to using my hairdryer. So now continuing on with her shells. I think I used like 3 shades of purple on hers, and I was actually with Mulan, I was actually going to do a different Chinese traditional dress on her, like the usual green one, but I decided to give her the more feminine look to her, so I went with the pink dress that she has. And as you can see, because of the black hair, I like to use blue to highlight it. A lot of people like to use gray. I like to use gray sometimes as well with highlighting black hair, but it makes it look like as if the character has, you know, gray hair. So I prefer the blue. It just gives it that, you know, a different kind of like dimension to it. So continuing on with her pink dress, as you can see. Yep, I told ya, I'm obsessed with the smaller brushes, but with the bigger area, like Mulan's pink dress, I go over it with, you know, like with the bigger Princeton brush. And I think the Princeton brush that I used on that one, I think it's number 6. But yeah, it's just a lot easier. You know, if it's a bigger area, then you can use a bigger brush. I like to use a bigger brush, but if it's a smaller area like that, you see, like on the tail end of that, the front bit of her dress, I like to use the smaller brushes. So there's a different brush as well. I think that is a size, this Angelus brush in 20-0. And then purples, I use the same purple as that Ariel's bra or shell, as you'd like to see. Yeah, so just going over Mulan again. Just, yeah. So that's just the way we do it. And then I go over her dress with petal pink and hot pink mixed together, so it creates that shadow right there. So it's pretty cool. I didn't feel the need to highlight it because I thought that, you know, like the petal pink, the base of petal pink already acts as a you know, as a highlight. And if I put, you know, something that's a lot lighter pink on the dress as a highlight, it would make it more white, and I just want to make it look more feminine, so I'm sticking to the petal pink. And with the blending as well, I use water, as you can see. And then this one, the scroll that she's holding, I've pre-mixed that paint as well. And then for final details, like the way I'm doing right now, the lace work on her shoes, and that, you know, like the chest and buttocks area, I've used the detail brush as well. And